No sword can cut as deeply as betrayal, and when it comes from your own flesh and blood, that pain, it just doesn't go away. Absalom was a prince so charming that the people admired him, but he was also cunning enough to steal the throne from his own father. However, what motivates a man to turn against his own father? And how does a father react when love and loyalty collide with rebellion and revenge? Absalom's story is a timeless one about pride, ambition, and the terrible price of seeking revenge. Absalom, the son of King David, was born into affluence and became famous for his extraordinary charm and beauty. The public adored him because of his remarkable appearance, particularly his well-known hair, but it also fueled his ego and aspirations. This stirring story, found in 2 Samuel, describes how a prince's uncontrolled ambitions resulted in betrayal, civil war, and tragedy. Beyond history, it serves as a mirror reflecting the struggles of human nature, teaching us about the dangers of arrogance and the high cost of revenge. Although it was written thousands of years ago, its lessons are still highly relevant today. In 2 Samuel 14:26, Absalom's hair, which weighs 2 kilograms when cut annually, is highlighted as a representation of his strength and status. Hair was a common symbol of strength and vitality in ancient societies, and this detail adds to his remarkable appearance. However, Absalom's charm went beyond his appearance. People admired him because of his innate charm and ability to connect with people. He had a gift for making others feel important by fusing eloquence, charisma, and seeming empathy, qualities that subsequently assisted him in mobilizing support for his daring ideas. Absalom was not just a prince, he was a born leader. Absalom represented a better future and hope to Israelites. In contrast to past royals, he has shown empathy for the hopes and hardships of common people. This close relationship served as his best tool, fueling his ambition and sense of entitlement to power. His seemingly ideal life will soon be turned upside down by a family tragedy that permanently changed his destiny. A difficult chapter in David's family's history is revealed in 2 Samuel 13. David's son Amnon developed an intense attachment to his half-sibling Tamar, Absalom's sister. This created a dangerous stress among the royal family. Amnon's obsession ignited a series of unfortunate events as he plotted to be alone with Tamar, ultimately setting the stage for tragedy. According to 2 Samuel 13:6-7, Amnon pretended to be unwell and requested that King David send Tamar to take care of him. David consented since he trusted his son and was not aware of Amnon's evil plans. Amnon's ruthless strategy exposed his calculating nature, taking advantage of even his father to satisfy his desires. Tamar was sadly misled into falling into a trap that would ruin her life and disrupt the harmony of the entire royal family. Tamar cries in desperation, but Amnon assaults her in 2 Samuel 13:11-14. In addition to ruining her life, his violent behavior violated God's will and exploited the trust of her family. When Absalom first found out what had happened to his sister, he remained silent on purpose. We read Absalom's comments to Tamar in 2 Samuel 13:20. "My sister, please keep quiet for the time being. He is your brother. Don't take this thing to heart." Absalom's strategic thinking is evident in this advice, which may appear cold at first. He was not ignoring his sister's suffering. He was preparing a calculated revenge. Absalom took Tamar to live in his home, promising to take care of her and protect her, but a storm of emotions was building within him. Absalom's silence concealed a deep-rooted rage and a thirst for vengeance that only intensified with time. Absalom's waiting period demonstrated his patience and cleverness, two qualities that were essential to his future plans. King David was furious upon learning about Amnon's crime, but surprisingly, he took no action. Neither did he punish Amnon, nor did he console Tamar. Absalom probably became even more resentful of this inaction, doubting his father's capacity to rule fairly. Absalom's anger increased over the course of 2 years, igniting ideas of rebellion. Keeping up an appearance of normalcy, he meticulously planned his revenge, knowing that the right time would arrive. His approach of being silent toward Amnon was not one of forgiveness. Absalom discovered the ideal opportunity to exact his vengeance at the sheep-shearing festival. He called upon all of the king's sons, including Amnon, and gave clear instructions to his servants. Absalom ordered his servants to strike and kill Amnon when he was intoxicated and celebrating. This cold and calculated act turned a happy event that was transformed into a terrible one. Everyone present was shocked when Absalom's servants executed his plot and killed Amnon. Absalom's actions weren't just a direct threat to King David's power, they also served as a personal revenge. The murder of David's firstborn changed the succession and started a series of events that would impact Israel's future. Absalom's transformation from a cherished prince to a rebellious murderer began at this moment, eventually making him an enemy of the state. Chapter 13 of 2. Samuel closes with a scene of utter chaos. As the king's sons for their lives, King David receives a false report. Absalom has killed all the king's sons. Not one of them is left. But the truth: Absalom had killed Amnon, the heir to the throne. Absalom's actions were more than just a crime. They were a direct challenge to David's power, turning a familial tragedy into a national emergency. Absalom was forced into exile and escaped to the kingdom of Geshur, where he spent 3 years reflecting, making plans, and studying politics. In the meantime, King David struggled with his love for his son and his responsibilities as a monarch. We witness King David suffering from sadness in 2 Samuel 13:39. While mourning Amnon's death, King David longed for Absalom's return, despite the fact that he had committed a crime. From that point on, their relationship would be defined by this intense struggle between royal duty and fatherly love. Israel's people, who loved Absalom, also wished for his return. David's army leader, Joab, employed cunning strategies to bring back Absalom. Joab sent a wise woman to tell a story to the king that resonated with David, and he was moved by this tale. Joab's plan was successful, and David ultimately consented to bring Absalom back. In 2 Samuel 14:23, Joab brings Absalom back to Jerusalem after 3 years of exile, but his return is not as cordial as anticipated. Absalom feels humiliated and rejected when King David orders him to go to his own home and not show his face. He was once a favorite, but today he feels alienated in his own house. This unwelcome response feeds his growing ambition and resentment. In order to restore his position, Absalom spends the next 2 years captivating the Jerusalemites with his extraordinary beauty and charm. In chapter 14:25, the remarkable description of Absalom's appearance is repeated. No one in all of Israel was so praised for his good looks as Absalom. He was flawless from the top of his head to the bottom of his foot. Absalom's innate charisma and physical attractiveness made him a captivating figure who drew respect and attention everywhere he went. In chapter 15:2, Absalom started his campaign by positioning himself at the city gate, where people came to voice grievances to the king. He would inquire about their origins and offer to listen to their issues. In a subtle critique of his father's government, he quietly presented himself as a more approachable option than King David. Absalom went one step further and broke down the conventional barriers between royalty and the common people by kissing and hugging anybody who approached him. His campaign was a smart strategy to portray himself as a friend of the common man, and it quickly gained popularity. Through his efforts, Absalom gradually gained the people's affection by projecting an image of a leader who genuinely cared about their issues. By gently criticizing David's administration, he generated discontent with the current system and positioned himself as the solution. Absalom built a loyal base by reaching out to those who felt ignored with his vision of a more equitable and accessible government that promised equality and justice. After 4 years of gaining support, Absalom told the king that he wanted to go to Hebron to fulfill a vow he had made to the Lord. However, his real motivations were much more sinister. Hebron was not a random choice. It was the site of David's coronation. By selecting Hebron, Absalom made a symbolic statement, associating himself with the authority of his father's reign. He intended to revolt against his father under the pretense of religion. Unaware of Absalom's actual intentions, David trusted him and granted his consent. Absalom's plan gained strength as he recruited influential individuals, including Ahithophel, one of David's key advisors. Absalom's rebellion spread quickly, shocking David. A messenger informed David that the people of Israel were supporting Absalom, signaling a serious threat. In response, David made the decision to leave Jerusalem to avoid bloodshed. As David fled, Absalom, accompanied by Ahithophel, joyfully entered Jerusalem. But retaining power was Absalom's true obstacle. David had devoted supporters and military expertise, even though he was on the run. Absalom's determination to destroy his father was demonstrated when Ahithophel advised him to gather 12,000 men and go after David right away. David possessed military experience and loyal warriors, whereas Absalom had the backing of the people and the advice of Ahithophel. A crucial player in the battle was Hushai, David's spy who pretended to be loyal to Absalom while covertly aiding David's cause. The war would not just be a father-son fight, it would also be a fight for Israel's future. 20,000 people died during the conflict, but David's army finally won in the Ephraim forest. Even though David had instructed Joab to spare his son, he killed Absalom, ending the rebellion. The victory was clouded by his overwhelming grief over his son's death, which also caused friction among his soldiers. This war drained Israel's resources and made the country weaker. The conflict tore apart once peaceful towns, leaving behind severe social differences that persisted long after the fighting was over. This chapter in Israel's history resonates deeply, offering valuable lessons about the dangers of unchecked ambition, the vulnerability of family relationships, and the consequences of choices made amidst political chaos. As we reflect on this story, we're forced to examine our own goals, decisions, and obligations carefully. It also reminds us to strive for wisdom and integrity in our own travels, taking inspiration from Absalom's mistakes and David's resilience.